me open some apps.
Okay, I think we're up on everything.
We're getting going.
The Facebook notification.
Just check
some
before.
moaning on my phone.
Yeah, that was.
Yep, that was you.
Look at.
Oh.
All right.
Morning,
Guys.
Welcome to the 034 live chat, episode number 119. 119. This is a Q&A session for all things 034. I'm Javad Shadzi, and this is Nate Stewart. And we're here to answer all your hot burning questions about Volkswagen and Audi tuning and performance, and anything 034 related that you'd like to know. Anything about our products or services, our history, our philosophy. You love us, you hate us, let us know and we can talk about it. Take a no BS approach to responding to questions. So go ahead and put your questions into the browser of your choice. And hopefully we don't hurt your feelings too bad. It's been known to happen on the show. Let me jump into some of last week's question. Are there any?
These are sitting there.
We have some here. Okay, cool. Okay, so someone's asking, any new Mk8 GTI parts coming? Downpipes, etc. Yes, we have lots of new Mk8 products coming. We have a lot on the market already. So if you go to our website and you put in your car, you'll see everything that we have currently. We have some S34 intakes coming. We do have, what was the thing that was being asked about?
Downpipes.
And we do have a high flow racing cat coming. Tuning is coming.
Yep.
And the car's not that different. So a lot of the MQB stuff fits the MQB Evo generation, but there are some stuff that is specific, and stay tuned. So we got more coming. Just tuning in, can you explain the difference between the fuel cut tune and ignition cut tune for the 3.0T, specifically the throttle body position difference?
There's no throttle body position difference that would, correlate to any of those. The fuel cut and ignition cut are just two different strategies for holding rev limits that can be used.
Is the throttle wide open during that? It's not completely wide.
Okay, well, are we talking throttle plate? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if they're talking like between a SuperDuper.
No. They're talking about the throttle plate.
Throttle plate. It allows us to leave the plate open, so you get more air into the motor. Whether it's ignition cut or fuel cut, it really doesn't matter that much, depending on what you're trying to do. So
the throttle body's open, and then either fuel or timing are being cut to maintain a certain RPM.
Yep. So with the ignition cut one, we're able to basically give you just some more load available more quickly as soon as we release that limiter. So we don't, you've got all the fuel in the mix. We pull a bunch of timing to basically. You're allowed a lot more air into the cylinder while being able to hold a rev limit before you have to hit that hard cut. So you basically just got the system primed and ready to go as soon as you can then digitally essentially turn up the ignition timing. So it's just basically we're giving you every chance you can to get as much air in the system as possible.
How much camber should I aim for on B8 facelift with those upper adjustables? It really depends. So if you would just like to drive a car like a factory, and then you could use the upper adjustables to get back to basically, I don't know how much camber is stock these days.
It's like 1 degree or something.
Yeah, like 1 degree. If you would like better handling and performance on the street, I would recommend something in the 1.5 to 2 degree range. That won't necessarily accelerate your tire wear too much. And if you're track driving, you could max them out. I think they will typically add around 2.5 to 3 degrees max, depending on how high the car is. So there's no such thing as the perfect amount of camber. It really depends what you're doing. Will the universal surge tank kit be available before Thanksgiving. I think it should be. And yes, it's usable for the B8 S.
Yeah, someone's asking why that's the B8.5 S4. Well, you have to, again, it's universal. You're going to have to run some extra lines, return lines. You're going to have to get your fuel pump PWM signal up to the controller. So, yep, there'll be some work to do. But yes, it has been used before and will work on a B8.5 S4.
I mean, it should be universally compatible for any Volkswagen or Audi.
No.
With the PWM.
Nope. It depends. It depends on the controller they've got right now. So it's anything that's got a brushless pump will drop in.
All right. That's what. Anything with a brushless pump.
Yep.
Not any Volkswagen or Audi ever made. No.
But yeah, currently.
Can't let me finish my sentence. But yeah, it's almost done. Where all the parts are here. We're just going through the last few steps to release to the market. Can you run the TT A10 without a high pressure fuel pump without fuel cuts if you're not running ethanol, just 93 octane? Not on our tuning. We don't offer an A10 tune, or we don't offer any stage 3 big turbo tunes without a high pressure fuel pump. Right. There's kind of no point. I think another tuner may offer some stock pump tunes. I don't know, but we don't see the points. If you're gonna have that turbo, you definitely need the extra fuel, whether it's gasoline or ethanol. I have a B9 S4 non-sport diff model. What are the best ways to improve handling to have it compared to the sport diff models? Okay, I'll say the diff doesn't necessarily change or influence the handling of the car. The diff simply changes how power is delivered through the rear tires, and it simply means that, well, one of your rear tires spin when your rear tires are overpowered, or will both rear tires spin, or will the diff give the tire with the most traction power when it needs it, which is usually the outside tire when you're turning. So as far as like driving around town, if you're bombing down a windy road, and even on track, unless you're really getting the car sliding and braking kind of traction, and you're doing car control, the rear sport diff isn't going to make that much difference. Yep. So as long as your tires are firmly planted on the ground and have traction, you're not going to notice it. So then you're just talking about our entire catalog of handling parts, like our springs, our sway bars. You could do the rear sway bar or both sway bars, our adjustable arms, our inserts, even to some extent our wheels and tires, which will allow you to put a bigger, wider tire on. That's all the stuff that really makes the car drive and feel a certain way. But if you want to be able to apply power going through a corner as you're exiting the corner, and you want to exit the corner faster, or you want to use overpowering the rear tires to achieve more oversteer, then that's where what diff you have in the back is going to make more of a difference.
Yeah, there's really not any difference in vehicle setup or suspension, components that we would select based on the rear differential alone. Your natural vehicle handling is going to be one thing, and then corner exit, abilities is going to be where the differential comes in.
And of course, you could feel a difference in the rain or in low traction conditions, where the way the car applies power and how traction breaks loose is going to be influenced by the diffs. I think some of the questions we've been asked over the last few weeks, I think there's some misperceptions about what the sport diff does. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to spend a minute to really kind of clarify that the differentials influence how power is delivered to what tire, and how power is delivered when the tires start losing traction. And so that's kind of the beauty of, like the Quattro Haldex system, is the center differential is going to send traction to whichever axle has the most grip. And again, a lot of times that's going to be the rear axle, because the weight is shifting back and there's a weight transfer off the front tires onto the rear tires. The more weight is on the tires, the more grip you're going to have. So feel free to ask more questions about the diff and how it works and what it does. We can continue to further clarify that for you guys.
Mhm.
The ZTF R01 forged wheels, 20x10 for RS5. Will you be adding any more colors? Preferably black would be nice. We might, but this is a very slow selling wheel for us, so probably not. I guess it's a vicious cycle of
Yeah.
we don't have enough colors, so people don't want to buy them. So the product gets less priority. We sell a lot more of some of the other sizes, but this 20x10 size really has not moved. So the best thing I would recommend right now is that you buy a set. In fact, if you want to contact us, we'll give you a good deal on a set. And then maybe the money we save you, you can pay for a paint job. Either powder coating or just take it to a paint body shop and have them spray on. I don't think spraying a set of wheels should be that expensive, especially a set of brand new wheels.
Yeah, if there's no cleaning and minimal prep work.
Just the light sanding and hit them with some black paint should be pretty cheap. Why do other tuning companies require bigger fuel injectors for B9 3.0T Stage 3? 034 does not require it. We've talked about this a number of times. They don't even necessarily require it. They actually offer tunes for stock injectors as well. They chose to go with the bigger injector. We don't know why, because we don't believe it's needed. We haven't seen anything in the engineering that would suggest that it should be needed or required. So I guess you'd have to ask them why they do it.
Yeah, we can't speak for the decisions on any other end.
But you're not giving up anything with our tune by not having the bigger or the different injector, whatever it is. So the question is really for them. We released a great optimal tune that doesn't require you to spend extra money on injectors you don't need. I heard from a very reputable shop that the lowering springs can rapidly accelerate wear on your stock shocks. Better to just get coilovers and avoid shock failure. Any truth to it? Not really, no. I mean, that's just I'm not surprised the mechanic said this. It's someone with just a little bit of knowledge about something who makes kind of a really broad statement that doesn't apply to the nuances of reality. I would say if you wanted to take a factory car with factory Dynamic Plus shocks and struts, and you put our Dynamic Plus springs on it, I would put that up against any aftermarket coilover as far as longevity, reliability, right?
Yeah, I mean,
like coilovers and reliability are not two things that you usually use in the same sentence.
And we've talked about this before. When you hear sweeping, I don't know the specifics of this comment, obviously, but when you hear sweeping statements and generalizations like that, there are thousands or hundreds of different lowering springs out there. Some might be too low and crashy and terrible. And accelerate wear. There's also the hundreds of coilover kits, and I guarantee you there's more coilover kits that are going to fail more quickly.
If you're looking for reliability, you're not going to beat our springs with the factory dampers. And I mean, we've sold many thousands, tens of thousands of springs for 5-6 years now, and there are no widespread failures of factory shocks. This is kind of like saying, my mechanic told me that if you run with running shoes, you can hurt your back, so you should ride a skateboard everywhere, because you don't get hurt on skateboards. If you are a runner and you have really shitty shoes, yes, you could experience pain or discomfort from the lack of support or whatever. But if done well, a good running shoe is going to support you. So there are bad springs out there. There are companies that offer lowering springs that lower the car too much. There are springs that are so low that it causes the valving in the factory shock to constantly bottom out. And that over time can damage the seals and cause the shock to blow out. But a properly designed lowering spring with a factory shock is very reliable. So your mechanic's wrong about that. And then again, the coilovers in general are not very reliable, and they tend to have a lot of issues.
If you want to generalize the markets, I would say it's the exact opposite of what your comment led to. Is coilovers are typically a much more small volume, higher fail rate,
Yeah.
more homebrew kind of situation versus a mass produced
With
quality.
with that said, there are
Oh, there's some really good quotes.
we don't want to make the same type of sweeping giant. There are good quality coilovers that last a long time, but again, the truth is always much more nuanced than these kind of salacious statements that get made. So, if you'd like, have your mechanic shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to talk to him more about. But I doubt your mechanic has ever designed a suspension component in his life, much less knows what he's really talking about. There are some also there's some knowledgeable mechanics out there too, and there's plenty that are.
We're not trying to generalize. We're just we're working with what we've got here for information, but.
But more often than not, we hear these like mechanics. Every time someone says my mechanic said, it's just, I kind of cringe and wait for some kind of ridiculous statement.
I've heard less of that. What was it? ASC certified. My ASC certified exists.
ASC certified. That's great.
I'm not sure what we're discussing.
That doesn't mean he's an engineering expert. How can I make sure that AMAX is activated on my S5 B9? Do I need to build a specific amount of boost during launch? So you turn off the traction control, you go into dynamic mode, then you hold the brake and gas for 2 to 3 seconds until the RPM stabilizes, and you let go.
And you do need a surprising amount of brake pressure. You will have to get on the brakes.
And sometimes you have to like push a little harder.
These, depending if on this car, it will push against the brakes. You got to make sure you've got adequate pressure to hold it back, and everything's got to be up to temp. You've got operating temperatures and everything met. If you have fault codes for other things, that can prevent it as well. So make sure if you're having issues, you don't have any fault codes in either the ECU, TCU, or ABS. And then it should just be hold down the brake, firmly first, and then get on the gas. Should do it.
We have a video how to do this on our uncut YouTube.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Nick put together a video.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sean put together.
Our go
Nick
to
instructed Sean to put together a video.
Delegation.
go to our YouTube uncut channel. Maybe you can send him a link if.
Yep.
Quick question: if on an E40 file, and my girl didn't know, so she thought it would be cool to surprise me with gas today and put 93 in it. So should I flash back over to 93?
Awesome that she tanked.
That's very nice of her.
Some gas, but I would flash back to 93 for now.
Yeah.
It's better to run the 93 with. I don't know what your ratio is, if it was like 3/4 of a tank of E40 or what, but if you're questioning it and it's a diluted ethanol mixture, I'd just run the 93 file.
Yeah. She sounds like a keeper.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Someone's asking about these inlets here, so let me talk about those for a minute. So this is our standard B9 3.0T turbocharger inlet that we released last week. These have been selling really well. This is a factory configuration piece, so this is a direct fit for in a stock vehicle, and we offer 2 adapter ring options. One is like a 54 millimeter for the stock turbo, and then we have a 63 mil for
Pure 7.
Pure 750,
61 coming for TS2.
and a 61.2 coming for the TS2 turbo. So this is released. These will start shipping this week, and this is a great option if you're going to stay really stage 1 or stage 2, or you'd like to upgrade to the Pure 750 or the TS2. This will accommodate that and still flow more than the stock unit, and it will properly adapt to those bigger turbos. Now, for the bigger turbo options in the market, like the TT 710, 810, and beyond, TS3, we are very close to releasing our SuperDuper inlet for the B9 3.0T. So this is a actual high performance unit. This will not work in a stock vehicle. So as you can see, the factory fit one fits well inside this other one. In fact, it's almost all the way. Actually, just hitting the
it can almost
bracket.
digest the whole.
I can pretty much eat the whole thing. This flows substantially more than a factory piece, This is a great option for anyone, again, with the TTE 710 or 810 or bigger. And then we have a series of turbo inlet adapters we can go to stock. And the biggest is 66, which is currently accommodates
Yeah, 710,
TT 710, 810, the biggest stuff on the market. We are imminently releasing this, so this should be available in the next week or so. If you are interested in getting what we believe the best inlet on the market, hang in there for a little longer. We will also be offering these with various new adapters for our intakes. So for any S34, X34, P34 options that are out there, we will offer bigger hoses that accommodate the bigger inlet size here that still works with our air filter. So the SuperDuper inlet with any of our intakes is going to be a very good high flowing option for the 700 to 800 horsepower range with no real loss in performance. And then we are coming out with an S34 that can accommodate 1,000 plus horsepower with no loss of flow. So that intake's a little ways away, but that's what these are. So again, I think if you're not gonna ever go big turbo, this is a great option. If you think you might go big turbo, this will accommodate various big turbos that are already on the market.
RK is also the only one that retains the OEM.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we have all harness clips as well. Which
Yeah, harness clip.
I don't know if anybody else does.
And that's important to keep everything, There's no reason to delete it, but yeah, keep all the wires where they're supposed to be.
Yep.
Someone's asking about Teflon-lined sway bar bushings. It is something we're looking into. So apparently there's a company that makes Teflon lining sleeves, which is what other companies are using. So we are looking into that. That would be something that we may offer in the future.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on the bushing itself. Some are very thin, depending on what bracket they're going into. So
Yeah. And we're still not convinced that it's as amazing and great as it's being positioned. So we'll have to see. We need to test it.
Yep.
Sure. 2014 Audi S5 is going into limp mode. Email tuning@034motorsport.com.
yeah, we can't help you
Yeah,
here.
I can't help you in the air here.
So we can walk you through it with support. We'll get logs and stuff done.
Yeah, we'll be happy to help you. Any chance you are developing an ECU tune for the C8 RS6? That is something that we will have eventually. It's not a big focus for us right this second, but I think at some point in the future we will definitely get to that. Someone's asking about water meth nozzle sizes. I don't really have much to comment.
No, I mean, it's going to be so setup specific. Nozzle size is one thing, but you also have to, what's your head pressure behind that? What kind of a pump and system do you have? Is it linear? Is it just on?
Run E85.
That's an impossible question to kind of generally answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tested from 500 up to 1,000 cc, multiples of, so, and so I have no power improvement on any of them for what it's worth.
Yeah, especially if you can run any kind of E40 or E85 contents.
Yeah.
Love my B9 3.0T street density engine mounts. Great to hear. Will you be coming out with track density or maybe even stronger billet mounts? I need more NVH.
More NVH, all right.
We may, if there's request for it. I think we will come out with a motorsport version at some point, most likely, and probably not do a track density. So a motorsport version would be very stiff and indestructible, and I think with some of the really fast drag cars that are going these days, it would be a good idea.
Yeah, and I assume it's going to be similar to it feels similar to the B8 stuff, where they're really livable.
They're not too bad.
I've had them in my car for years, and kind of forget they're there.
But glad you're happy with the street mounts. That's awesome. Love your products. Use them for years on customer cars. Haven't had any complaints, and that's a lot to say about quality. Great job, guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, and good for you for,
It sounds
for
like
having such a problem-free experience.
Sounds like this is a shop, so that's
Yeah.
really appreciate. We love hearing that.
Yeah.
You guys see a lot more than the average customer with good and questionable products. So
Yeah, dealers have at times told me that our products are drama-free, which is kind of the best compliment you can give or get.
yeah, it's one of those things too where we don't necessarily. It's great to hear because oftentimes in this industry, no news is good news. Where things are
Yeah.
just happening and products are moving, and we're not hearing much about them. That usually means they're.
I
just
hate to
working.
say it in life in general.
Well, it's true. Yeah.
Usually people aren't falling over themselves to come tell you how great you are.
Criticisms come hot and heavy though.
Yep. Out of every crack and cranny.
Yeah.
For MQB, do you know about the Autotech high pressure fuel pump internals pressure spiking with MPI installed? I'm not
I have
familiar.
no idea what they're referring to on this.
The MPI taps
MPI
into
will tap
feed.
into it, so you will have some fluctuations on
It still shows
pressure feed.
big.
But I would have to look at whatever logs or data they're talking about. There will be fluctuations in pressure. I don't know. Yeah, and maybe that their low pressure side is not keeping up, so they're dropping a bunch of pressure, which means the high pressure is trying to account for it. Low pressure turns off, and you get a spike. But I have no idea.
Which suspension upgrades will help with lowering quarter mile times? So generally, anything that makes the car handle worse is great for acceleration. Definitely softer suspension. You really letting the car weight transfer to the back tires. This is similar if you've ever ridden a bike. You know that under braking, your front tire locks up instantly, but I'm sorry, your rear tire locks up instantly. Your front has grip, and if you have enough leg strength and you can pedal hard, you know that your rear tire when you're going forward has quite a bit of grip and traction. But if you had a bike that had a front tire, and that was the chain was powering the front tire, that it would break traction very easily. So when you launch the car, you really want the car to lean backwards onto the rear tires.
If we're talking all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. Now, in a front-wheel drive, it's the opposite. You want to keep all the weight on the front tire if you can. In fact, years ago, I built a really fast Rabbit, Mark I Rabbit, and we actually replaced the rear shocks in the car with steel rods. And so the car had a ton of front rake, and it was just sitting on the front tires. And we put some really big sticky tires on it. And it's the same thing too with the same idea with wheelie bars. That's the
Well, you hit a hard stop
on a front wheel drive car. They really stiff. They run wheelie bars in the back to keep the weight on the front tires. We don't really offer any products to help make your car faster in the quarter mile. Really?
Tunes. Come on.
No. Suspension. He's talking about suspension. Yeah. But definitely your alignment settings can have a big impact. So having no camber is good. Having very little to no toe is good. These things put more tire on the ground and take out. So toe in, your tires are draggy because they're pointed in. So alignment settings are definitely a good spot. We have plenty of products for that. And then, lightning or unsprung mass, any rotational mass, whether wheels or rotors, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, rotors that's one. People will at times overlook the benefit of lower rotating weights and just, inertial weights in general around the vehicle.
Yeah.
So this can be huge compared to factory stuff.
Depends. I mean, most of us and the customers that we're going for, you're looking for a car that's fun to drive, that has good handling, that has good acceleration from a stop. And so, it's more of an all-purpose. It does a lot of things well. But I mean, F1 cars are the best handling cars on earth, and they're actually pretty slow in the quarter mile. If you
all things
considered,
they're not designed for that.
They have a hard time getting out of the hole, tons of wheel spin. They're not designed for that. And then you go to the other extreme, the fastest drag car in the world can barely turn. I mean, the steering wheels
can't turn, can't stop, can't. Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't go around a racetrack.
I forbid you came to a bump.
Yeah. So our goal is to help you build a car that does everything well. Now, if you want to go out and like some of our customers do with our tuning, to Nate's earlier example, and you want to run like a world record time, then you are going to inevitably going outside of our catalog in the suspension department. And not to say that you can't set a world record time with our suspension. You absolutely can, and I think a lot of the world records are on cars like that.
Yep.
But if you want to build a B8 S4 that runs sevens, it's going to need a custom
You're going to be so
drag
far
racing
outside
type
of
suspension. Yeah.
what's going to be like a comfortable and livable.
Yeah. Not to mention all the power you need and tires and all that stuff.
When do we get this guy?
Which one?
Oh no.
Yeah, you can go with it.
Yep.
B9 RS5 turbo inlets. Not sure if that's been mentioned. We are working on B9 RS5 turbo inlets. I will just simply say this: that really the only reason to change your RS5 turbo inlets is to accommodate bigger turbos like TT 720s. The factory inlet actually flows really well, and if and when we release a stock RS5 inlet, we won't be advertising any huge flow gains because the flow of that part is largely determined by the size of the inlet and outlets, and that's pretty much set. You can make the middle portion as big as you want, and it's still really only going to flow so much. I know there's a number of other aftermarket companies who have released intakes that have inlets incorporated with them. Just to be clear, if there's any flow gains from that product, it's all from the intake side itself, not from the turbo inlet part that it replaces. So unless you can just make that whole pipe a lot bigger, the outlet is going to be determined by the turbo inlet size. And that's basically what we found with this is the flow of this piece is completely determined by the size of the insert adapter that you have in here. So we can actually go from the stock size insert to like the whatever 62 mil, and the flow jumps like 20-30% just from changing that piece. But I think in the future there will be 1,000 horsepower RS5s and with really big turbos installed, and so those will need definitely a bigger turbo inlet. Answer this one real quick. What things do you guys look for when data logs are sent in before being approved to run water meth injection for B8.5 S4?
I mean, just that everything's kind of tip top. You're not getting anything outside of the normal. We've spoken a lot about water meth and what we think of it here, but yeah, you can consult with Tuning at, and we'll let you know. But there's not a lot of difference on the water meth file either. It's just takes into account some of the additional fuel media that's in there, so you're not relying so much on the oxygen sensors to turn it around.
Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest thing we do, but we want to make sure everything's up to snuff before we do that for you.
What's the update on the 034 high pressure fuel pump upgrade for B9 S5? They're coming very soon. I think we could release them next week or two, hopefully. I'm just talking out of my butt, but they are on their way here from the manufacturer. We will do some final production validation, and we will release. So we're getting very close.
2 weeks.
Not the APR 2 weeks. How much longer before Mk8 Golf R tune is available? We don't have a date or anything. We are working on these tunes. It shouldn't be too far off. Hi all, appreciate the great tunes. Speaking of injectors, stage 2 ECU TCU B9, when you all come out with the 034 fuel pump, will you have injectors you recommend to go with it? Still learning, so forgive the stupid question.
Oh, stupid question, but no, they're going to be independent of each other. So the fuel pump will be its own thing. If at some point we need injectors for some other to solve a problem, we'll have calibrations for that, but not on a stage 1 or stage 2 setup.
Yeah.
No, the fuel pump's just going to let you supply the stock injectors with what we need, but we don't have any intention right now of changing the injectors just because of the fuel pump.
Any updates on CARB certification for B9 products? just to be clear, there's no certifications, although it could be generically referred to one. It's an exemption.
Yeah.
From essentially the Clean Air Act, but
There's no certification. There's no approval. There's no.
Yes, when you hear
what's the other term?
CARB approved, that doesn't exist. However, we are engaged with CARB on that stuff. It's a very slow process. Basically, any of our stage 1 tunes that have the factory cat run as clean as stock and are essentially CARB exempt because they haven't been. They don't actually pollute more than a stock car. As far as like getting pulled over or even refereed, the car, the emissions from the tailpipe are the same as stock, as long as you don't mess with the factory cat. That's when the issue comes in. But I'm just saying that so you can feel comfortable knowing that if you're on stage 1, you're not polluting at all anymore. But the actual exemption process can take years, so we're engaged with that. But we wish we knew when. But we don't. B9 RS5 is the stage 3 development put on pause. Is this the same guy every week that accuses us of putting it on pause? Okay, I'm not answering this anymore. Have you guys ever noticed power efficiency loss on high mileage EA 837s due to carbon buildup?
I mean, if you're getting carbon buildup, yeah. I mean,
it's interesting. The various Audi motors have different levels of carbon buildup issues. For some reason, which we can only hypothesize. But any engine that has carbon buildup will see a loss of power. 100%. You are blocking the air's ability to go inside the motor. At some point, if you completely block the port, the engine won't even. So yes. So if you want to inspect, I will say B8 3.0 TFSIs don't seem to be the worst by any means when it comes to carbon buildup. Some of the V8 motors are much worse. The 4 cylinders don't seem to be as bad either.
They still suffer from it, but it's not as bad. It also varies a ton depending on climate, on driving styles, on maintenance, oils used. I don't know the battery combination that will keep anything clean, but it varies a lot from vehicle to vehicle as well.
Well, this is a good question. What were your initial reactions when the B8 S4 was first revealed? The vintage B8 S4.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Surprised they used the supercharger? Were you happy they returned to forced injection? I'm too young to That's a great question. Yeah. So, yeah, you nailed it. With your comments of. So we were a tuning company, and I guess as tuning enthusiasts, there was not. The late 90s, the early to mid 90s were not a great time for tuning Audis. There was basically the AAN powered S4 S6. That was it. And then there was just like crappy 12 valve V6s and stuff like that. So the A4 came out, and in 96 it came out with 12 valve. Seemed okay. It was fine. And the car was really nice. And then they brought the 5 valve 30 valve. That's like, okay, that's cool. That's like the same type of cylinder head tech as like, Ferraris and motorcycle,
it was all about valve count back then.
Yeah. And then everything changed when Audi brought the 180 to market. I mean, that Audi went from kind of this outside German brand that was failing to every automotive journalist on the planet writing 10-page articles about this amazing car with this amazing motor. And so we, the Volkswagen Audi tuning aftermarket was completely energized by the 180, and then the 270 came.
Yep.
Holy shit! Like now we're talking. You can make real power in an Audi. You could tune it, and you'd have 300 horsepower. 300 horsepower in 1999.
Yeah,
there was nothing like it.
Things have changed.
There was really nothing like it. I mean, anything on the road you could decimate, and then you bolt on KO4s from Europe, pretty soon you're pushing 500 horses.
Yeah, all-wheel drive and a 6-speed, and those things are monsters.
So come 2002, and Audi just pulls the 2.7, and the S4 goes normally aspirated with, I'm sorry, a really
Humdrum.
a humdrum V8 that made nowhere near enough power. And then for like, I don't know, 6 years, we were stuck with, just these lackluster V8s and S4s and RS4s and stuff.
We had the 2-liter turbos then, the direct injection, which were great motors, but yeah, nothing in the S class or.
The entire industry shifted to 1AT, and the new 2.0T, thank God, was an amazing motor. And now you're making 400 horsepower, on a 4-cylinder. So when the B8 S4 came along, it was like, first off, thank God we have forced induction again. But what the fuck is this thing? Where did Audi come up with this supercharger bullshit? And like, what are we going to do with it? So the industry really struggled with the 3.0T initially. APR was the first to market with a tune, and they were blown up motors, blown up cats. The power was okay; it wasn't great.
Well, yeah, and it depended on what exact vehicle you had. It was kind of all over the place. I mean, teething problems that lots of people
big teething problems. Tackling this whole new platform, the CMOS ECU.
CMOS ECU, the whole new
brand
thing
new,
that everybody was struggling with, and I think people really kind of take for granted, where the tuning industry is at now. Not very long ago, it was a whole different world of how we had to get things done and what people would accept.
So I'd like to take credit that we finally fixed B8 3.0T tuning and made it what it should have been all along. And we did that about 5 years ago. We kind of got everyone's attention by going out and running a world record on a stage 1 car with Westlake tires. A bolt stock car. Just the tune was enough to get the world record because it was making so much good power. So we're very spoiled now. Now we've got the B8, the B9. I mean, Audi backed up the B8 with a 3.0T turbo, which frankly is a godsend to the tuning aftermarket. We're now making 700-800 horsepower on pump gas. Streetable cars, SQ5s are running low 11s. It's a good time to be alive. But the supercharger was weird, and the industry did struggle with it, I'd say, for a good 5-6 years. APR even came out with a bigger supercharger unit, the TVS
Magnuson stuff.
The Magnuson, whatever, yeah. And that actually was slower.
Well, it was hindered by other problems.
Yeah.
Cooling is a thing.
The cooling was a big problem. Cool. All right. Had my B9 RS5 on the drag strip Friday. The last run of the day, it started sputtering like crazy. It said it had a misfire in cylinder number 1. Would this have been a tuning issue or just an issue that came up based on just pushing the car?
So my first question when this stuff like this is, how much fuel did you have? That is a huge factor in the drag strip, and
that's probably it.
You'll get into I had a half tank of fuel or whatever. It sloshes a lot. When you launch at the drag strip, you're going to put more force on that than anywhere else, and that can certainly cause what you experience. Where later on in the night, you're getting lower and lower on your fuel. You might have just gotten some cavitation on the pump.
So one of these cars, when accelerating fast, can easily pull 1G.
Yeah.
So the fuel in your tank is now at 45 degrees. So if you're sustained at that level of acceleration, that's literally the fuel in your tank. And if you have half a tank, it's like it doesn't just do this; it goes like this.
And that's static. And when you launch, it'll actually you
can slosh around,
slosh and go full swirl in there.
So that's a very common issue. You can address it by just filling up the tank and seeing if it goes.
Yeah,
but that's most likely it. And just FYI, there's no really issues with tuning. Like tunes don't go bad. The software and coding inside the factory ECU doesn't change.
Right.
So spark plugs go bad, coils have issues, but and our tune is proven as far as like drag racing a quarter mile and acceleration. So not likely a tuning issue. It's some kind of hardware related thing that's changed, and I think Nate's theory is probably the best one. Start with that.
We see that a lot. It's depending on the car, some suffer more than others. You can take like a stock Daza car out, and anything below like 3/4 of a tank, and you'll have this issue.
Yeah,
they can always email us if they're ever unsure.
Of course, yeah. Always email tuning at, and we can talk you through what we just did.
B9 SQ5 is the stock exhaust with a downpipe sufficient for stage 2+.
We have a list of the required mods on there. You will want a If you're talking just exhaust, that's fine, but you will want an intercooler into, you know, the supporting mods.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with the stock exhaust.
The exhaust
They're
itself is fine. That's what we have on. That's what you have on. Yeah.
Yeah.
All or 710 car.
It flows just fine. Will your tuning portal be able to check codes and data log? Thank you, guys.
Yes, it will. That will be coming.
Not right now, but
Not right now.
our
We
tuning portal could
we
be-
actually check fault codes and have records of your fault codes currently. You know, through the flashing process, it will let you know if there are fault codes detected. But we don't have like an interface for you to go in and look at, clear, and check and whatnot independently.
For people that run B8 S4 E40 tunes, will there be any issue with the high pressure fuel pump upgrade switching back to stage 2 plus 91 with the upgraded high pressure fuel pump?
No.
Also,
No, those run totally fine with a bigger pump.
have you noticed any more additional noise from the high pressure fuel pump? There is an Audi Zine thread with multiple people reporting that your high pressure fuel pump is louder than Autotech. There's no way.
They're going to be the same.
There's so little room for variation between
Yeah.
ours and the Autotech. And basically everything on the market has to be identical. Unless there's something wrong with something, I seriously doubt that. It could be that they're just accelerating faster and it's
I'm not sure,
Ears
but
are
I mean
ringing.
the direct injection system on those motors is
not.
it's noisy. It's very sewing machine kind of clattery.
Yeah. And they're noisy. How is it possible that a guy installed the tune to a car without uninstalling from a previous one?
I think this is a bad English translation.
Yeah, I mean
Fine.
it depends on the software that
Okay.
was on it, but most software you can flash over without issue. We
They're
recommend
just asking, can you?
Yeah, we recommend you flash back to stock first,
Yeah.
just so we know what we're starting with. But I mean, on most of these vehicles these days, and most of the software out there, you can still flash back to stock just fine, or flash over an existing file just fine.
Are you planning to release stage 3 tunes for small hybrid turbos like the TT510 or the TS1? Some people really care more about spool rather than peak power.
The stock turbo is great at that.
We're skeptical that's a worthwhile upgrade. So as far as prioritizing it, we don't have plans to do those anytime soon. Again, if you
So I mean, we're
want fast spool up, keep the stock turbo.
well, yeah, and we're limited right now on what we're able to make with it. I mean, we have more turbo than we can use on the stock turbo in the mid range.
I mean, is the 510?
it's
what would the factory turbo be rated at?
Yeah, it's
It's like a 500.
Because we're limiting the boost to save rods and that kind of thing. So there's not really a lot of reason to go with a bigger turbo or a stronger mid-range turbo right now. I don't think we'd run any more power.
If you want to buy a TT510, you can. It's just not a priority for us right now. And I would strongly just advise doing a 710 if you're going to do it. And the spool up's really not that much worse.
Once you're in the power band, it's up very quick.
And then the transmission shifts very
Yeah,
quickly.
you
It
got
stays
lots of
low.
gears to use for
Yeah.
for that. So
It's been 2 months now with the stage 1 for my
yes,
B8.5 S4. I love it. It's a blast to drive. Awesome. Great to hear. That's what it's all about.
yeah, and a really well set up stage 1 car is really hard to beat. They're just
It is.
day in day out. They're fast. They're repeatable. You're not on the ragged edge of everything in the car, and you're bang for the buck performance wise. It's huge.
Why isn't there a downpipe listed for the SQ5? We do not have one. We recommend the Wagner one, which we should sell. Should be on our website, yeah. So it should be listed on our website, the Wagner. Is it okay to run E85 long term in a TTRS? Yes,
Lots and lots and lots of people do.
we've done it for years.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some people that abide by some,
Swap back to
they pump gasoline back in to kind of flush the system. I mean, we never had any kind of strict strategy around that.
yeah.
May not be the worst idea, but we haven't had any issues.
What additional products can be used to reduce the IATs on a B8.5 S5 aside from the heat exchanger? I'm hitting 70 plus degrees at 7,200 RPM in the quarter mile.
Yep, I mean that's always the struggle with those cars. And that's where I was talking about. Like I'm assuming you're a 2+ car, which turn into pretty big heat pumps.
The amount of intercooling is set.
Yeah,
and you can try to pump water faster,
that was
harder.
So it's like I want to say I saw some improvement going to the CWA 100 pump, but I mean it's a marginal improvement at best. No, a good heat exchanger.
That's the rub with the the supercharged 3.0 T. And which is one of the reasons the bigger supercharger that we were talking about didn't work, because they weren't able to increase. You have 6 cylinders or 3 cylinders worth of intercooler brick. So if you make the supercharger bigger, you still only have.
Well, and they kept these stock bricks in there too,
Yeah,
so it's it's the brick designed for 300 horsepower.
Yeah. Have you experienced fuel in your B8 S4 launching hard with less than 1/8 in tank? Yes.
You betcha.
There's really no Audi or Volkswagen you can launch with 1/8 in the tank and not expect to have
That's where the surge tank comes in.
Tuned car. Any kind of
turbo tuner. It's fine.
Really?
0 mile. Yes.
I know I've talked to
Okay, well that's one data point. Generally,
I've definitely seen people with issues on stock.
Don't be surprised
stock
if you have
fuel systems.
issues.
But that's kind of why the surge tank, type of products exist.
Yeah. With the B8 3.0T's aging, what recommended mileage do you recommend replacing injectors? I
mean,
think there's a set.
I don't know if it's a set anything. It's going to depend so much on use and fuel and kind of how they've been cycled. I mean, at this point, I would say if you're questioning just do it. It's
100%. If you're getting into a car and it's new to you and you don't know when the injectors have been done and you plan on using it, just put in new injectors. They're not that expensive.
No, we've seen a lot of issues with them. So yes, it's worth it. And usually they run totally fine stock, or they're just fine stock, but they're blocked enough that when you try and really get basically everything the injector is capable of delivering, you'll see some huge deviations across them.
SQ5 B9 Stg3 running the forged dump valve. Need to know rough boost pressure to order correct spring rattling rating.
We don't.
We seriously recommend just running the stock diverter valve. But I'd say if you've got something that can hold 30 pounds of boost, it should be okay.
I don't know what the setup is on those. We haven't run them. The ECU needs to control the bypass on those. So good luck. I don't know.
Yeah, and there's literally no need for it.
Yeah,
unless it makes a hissing sound.
And spring pressure on bypass valves is that's a tough.
That's the electric one. That's one of the.
I'm not sure which one this is.
It was a B9. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, factory they're electric. Yeah. Right. I'm not sure on the forge if it's using manifold pressure.
Yeah, I guess we don't even know what valve he's
into the spring.
Even better reason to put the stock one back then. Any plans to release a tune for the S6 S7 C8 with 2.9 T?
That's the mild hybrid.
No current plans. It's in the realm of options that we will consider in the future. But no, we are not. We're not focused on that right now. A very cool car.
Mm-hmm.
When is the B8 S4 aftermarket engine stuff coming out? We will release it as it becomes available. And it's coming. Sorry again. This is the problem with the ETAs.
Yeah, ETAs are again really tough to give you guys anything.
RS5 B9 oil catch can updates. Yeah, we are still working on it. We had a slight issue with it that has now been corrected, and so we're having to remanufacture some stuff before we release it. I don't have an ETA on it. How about GPF B9.5 tunes?
We are still trying to work with some partners in the UK on that. I don't have anything to offer right now, though. There's been some just hang-ups that are just technical and file availability stuff.
We're working on it. Sorry about that. What do you recommend when it comes to maintenance for tuned B9s? Spark plugs are a good idea. Coil packs do wear out or get old. OEM are good, or we will have an upgraded, slightly upgraded coil coming out. There is actually one very popular aftermarket option right now that's not an upgrade, so be careful with that one.
It's a different color though.
I would just run stock for now. Trans fluid flush should be done at 40 to 50,000 miles. Oil changes, obviously. Diff fluids you could do every 50,000 miles.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind too, these intervals are developed for a couple of things. If you're relying on stock, maintenance intervals, that's based on a stock car to meet, production standards and cost of ownership standards that the OEMs have to hit. You are kind of way outside that envelope when you start modifying and then start adding, you're talking like 700 horsepower builds on a lot of these, or a number of these now. You really have to kind of take it into your own hands and talk with people that have been there before. But the OEM maintenance intervals kind of go out the window for all of this. For spark plugs, just are much quicker consumables. Your oil's going to take a bigger beating. All of this stuff, trans fluids. So it's going to be more maintenance for sure.
Yeah,
but you're going to be doing it 2 to 2.5 times the horsepower gains.
Yeah. Any future plans for forged internals for B9 S4 S5? Yeah, we're going to be doing rods. That's going to be needed on those. I don't really think we'll be doing anything else, or anything else is needed.
And pistons are always a trouble spot because for what how much are you boring over?
I don't recommend
how
how
much they're very specific.
Pistons are very
specific,
very problematic. If you want to build a motor and have issues afterwards with compression or smoking, things like that, then aftermarket pistons usually can cause headaches like that. Rods are, I would say, are minimally invasive modification. You're still using factory bearings, factory bearing clearances. The rod just goes in and stronger. The rod doesn't do anything other than just connect.
Yep. Yeah. Level of build complexity is just astronomically different when you start doing ring gaps and pistons and piston materials and that kind of thing.
Yeah. How does this turbo inlet compare to the IE equivalent? And when is the SuperDuper inlet dropping? And don't just say soon. Wow, people are so demanding.
Then we'll stop answering.
Can we have
these
a year
questions.
or expected quarter? Yes. 2022 quarter 4.
That's where we are.
Yeah, it's very soon, my friend. So just hang in there.
We're running out of time, guys.
What's normal fuel consumption on the B8.5 S4?
Between 10 and 30. It's pretty much the average. It entirely depends on what fuel you're running.
You're talking about EPA averages, EPA ratings. That's a very specific rating.
Yeah. I have heard a number of people that say they get better than stock.
People do say that.
With our software, it's a more efficient air path on a lot of these cars. We did spend a lot of time getting some of the fueling stuff dialed in.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but I mean, as much as you'll get stock, maybe better.
It should be the same as stock on our tuning.
Yeah, if you're on an E40, you're going to get a little bit less just because it's a different fuel density.
When should we consider running the MLS head gasket on the B8.5 S4? I would say anytime you're changing your head gasket. Yeah.
I wouldn't dive in there just to do it.
If you have a head gasket failure, by all means, do that, and head studs, which we have coming soon. But I would just get our head gasket if you're changing it at all. Mm-hmm. But if it's holding, just keep rocking that. If you want to build a motor and prepare it for higher use, then it's a good modification along with a handful of other things.
Yep.
We done?
I think we are out of time. So thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week, I think. Cheers.
Yep.